Hello kiddos, the long-awaited top 10 males of Final Fantasy list is finally upon us. Now I would first like to lay out the ground rules of how this list is going to work. First, there are no rules. That's right, this is my list.
I can do whatever I want.
I feel so powerful. Yeah, let's just start the list. Ooh. So Caius Ballard from Final Fantasy 13 is first up on our list, and probably a character I don't think gets as much love as he deserves. He's kind of this weird mixture of anti-hero, tragic villain, cursed legacy character, but I've actually always enjoyed these types of character stories. One where they're not inherently bad or inherently good, but more like somewhere in between. Caius is a perfect example of how Square still knows how to do a good villain arc while still making us care about the character and sympathize with their story. Also, he's voiced by Liam O'Brien, so I was contractually obligated to include him in the list. Vincent Valentine is next up on the list and leading the way with what I think is one of the coolest designs of all of the characters in the entire series. I remember when I was a kid and I used to think vampires were so edgy and cool. Now that I'm an adult, I guess things haven't really changed much. While Vincent has the aesthetics of an incredibly thought out character, he also has an incredible backstory which is expanded on in everyone's favorite game, Dirge of Cerberus. That's a joke because that game is terrible. But you can't help but get lost in the alluring gaze of Vincent's eyes. Hey man, we gonna do this or not? Tidus is making waves on our list at number 8. You get it? Because tide and waves, like the ocean. Actually, it's pronounced Tidus, which means moon in Japan, so your argument is based on a fallacy. Who the f*** let you in here? Aside from being the most controversially pronounced name in perhaps all of Final Fantasy, Tidus is more than deserving to be in the top 10 for his super awkward, overly happy-go-lucky attitude, which he displays in Final Fantasy X. It's a stark contrast as to what we normally see with most of our main protagonists. While he is more than likely the most annoying character that we have, he's also one of the most tragic and one of the most likable. Also, for all of you that get upset by the way I say Tidus, it's not like we say any of the other Japanese names correctly either. I don't know why we focus on this one so much.
Cloud.
Cloud.
Kettoshi.
Ketshi.
Tifa.
These nuts. Got him! Got him!
One of my favorite villains of all time in any media is the Joker from the Batman, and Kefka Palacio from Final Fantasy VI is Square's take on this style of maniacally insane villain. Kefka is one of the few villains in all of Final Fantasy who actually succeeds in his goals by the end of the game, and is also evil for the sake of being evil, but in a good way. We get to see Kefka go from a whiny, crazed general to completely losing his mind by the end of the game. Similar to the Joker, there are tons of clues and inferences in Final Fantasy VI that allow you to theorize on the minute details of Kefka's backstory. Not to mention that he has one of the most epic boss themes in all of gaming. Wow, another villain on the list. What a surprise. Guess you could say, I like the bad boys. And Ardyn Lucis Kylum, he's as bad as it gets, but so bad, he's good.
Doesn't even make sense.
Who writes these scripts?
Ardyn's character is mainly a slow build-up in 15 as you're not sure how integral he is to the story from the beginning, but once he begins his villain monologue and manipulation of the main party, you start to realize how dynamic this character actually is. Unfortunately, with the development hell of the Fabula Nova Crystallis series, Final Fantasy 15 was released with less than coherent story, which would have benefited this character even more. We have, however, gotten DLC that has released over time that does delve back into Ardyn's backstory. If this were released alongside the original game, I actually think Ardyn would be one of Final Fantasy's poster boys for villains overall. what could have been. Keeping on the theme of tragic characters, Zack Fair is about a tragic story as you're gonna get. Even though he's only shown a small amount in Final Fantasy VII and can almost go completely unnoticed if you're not looking hard enough, his role in the compilation of the series is probably one of the biggest, as he helps develop Cloud and Aerith as well. He also seems to be playing a massive role in the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which can only mean that his inclusion is going to be even more integral to the story. He is one of the most lovable characters in the entire series, rocks perhaps the most iconic weapon, and is also featured in one of the most tragic moments. Zack, we salute you. Where do we even begin with young Cloud Strife? He is one of the most lovable characters in the entire series, rocks perhaps the most iconic weapon. He's also featured in one of the most tragic moments. Hey, everyone, he said that about the last guy. He's a big fat phony. Oh yeah. So I figured Cloud and Zack's story is so intertwined that I almost combine them into the same character. And before all you purists get mad at me for that take, just know I've got this thing. What's it called? Oh yeah, an opinion. So relax. Anyways, OG Cloud was always just okay if you judged him on his own merit, but Zack's side of the story really helped shape his character and make you feel empathy for Cloud. The reason I have Cloud higher on the list than Zack is that Final Fantasy VII Remake has done an incredible job at fleshing out Cloud's individual character and made him a far more enjoyable and nuanced part of the story. I think it's fair to say that Cloud is the most popular Final Fantasy character today and is very deserving of number 4 on the list. Final Fantasy VIII's own Squall Lionheart makes it into top 3 of my list. Hold on. Okay, let me explain. Squall is by far my favorite main male protagonist design from an artistic standpoint, and his signature weapon being a gunblade is as badass as it gets. When I first played through this as a kid, Final Fantasy VIII was actually my favorite of the series. A lot of this had to do with me thinking Squall was just so damn cool. Yes, his dialogue is incredibly lame and non-interesting, but that is mainly due to the mistranslations from Japanese, so I can't blame his initial design. This is pretty much the problem I had with the game in the first place, as I just didn't feel it was as polished or handled with as much care as, you know, some of the other games in the series, if you know which ones I'm talking about. Similar to how Cloud and Zack build off of each other, Squall and Laguna are fairly similar. So, Squall, I would like to formally apologize to you and all the hateful things that I said to you in the past. The numerous times I said that your dialogue was dry and non-interesting. Will you ever be able to forgive me? All right, that's you, man. Everyone's favorite bad guy, Sephiroth, also known as Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel, the man of my dreams. Wait, how did that get onto the script? Sephiroth is the perfect example of how a character can become so great that they transcend games and even other media. Not only is character designs one of the coolest in all of gaming, Sephiroth also has such memorable boss music and equally devastating story and tragic like many others on the list. From being the hero of the Wutai War to becoming the most terrifying villain the series has seen so far, sporting the legendary Masamune as his weapon of choice, the long black cloak which has inspired generations of weebs worldwide, and his luscious long hair which apparently takes 1 full bottle of shampoo and conditioner per day to maintain. And that is actually canon, my friends, according to Crisis Core. Or are we just gonna sit here and pretend that Crisis Core has some silly things in it that aren't meant to be taken seriously? Huh? Number 1 on our list is no. Honorable mention, Laguna, the quirky papa of our adored Squall. It was possibly the highlight of the game for me. really gave it that extra depth that I feel it was lacking for most of the game. Also really cool theme music. Setzer, it was really hard for me to contain myself from putting him in the top 10. Is he a thief? Yeah. Is he a misogynistic womanizer? Yeah. Does he dress funny in Kingdom Hearts 3? Absolutely. But come on. Right? Am I right? Saj from Final Fantasy 13. The dynamic that he has with his son Dodge, and also the Afro Chocobo, it's way too cool. The Chocobo lives in his Afro. It's not a Chocobo with an Afro, which would also be sick. General Leo, Final Fantasy 6. And finally, no list would be complete without our boy Sid. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Not. Okay, well, I can't wait to read the comment section after this one. Number 1 on our list is the only character that is a main antagonist in one game and the main protagonist in another. Jack Garland is such an intriguing character that is far more development than surface level commentators will have you believe. His whole shtick about being obsessed with chaos was programmed into him and even reinforced through many iterations of him being a part of the cycle in Strangers of Paradise. However, Jack does overcome this and begins to understand his true nature, deciding to shape fate into the way he sees fit, effectively setting in motion the events of Final Fantasy I and possibly the entire series. While it's not technically canon to the rest of the games, Square Enix and especially Tetsuya Nomura love to deliver games that have far more meaning than what it seems like on the surface. I did do a deeper dive into this a couple of months ago in my Strangers of Paradise video that you should give a watch if you haven't already. With the upcoming release of the Strangers of Paradise DLC, I'm so excited to see what they have in store for Jack Garland, which has quickly become one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters in the series. Anyways, at least this list wasn't nearly as controversial as our top 10 females of Final Fantasy, which, I mean, you might as well just go watch that one next, I guess. Bye.